Have you ever walked into a room and just felt that immediate, overwhelming rush? You know, your brain just floods with faces, conversations, 1,000 tiny social signals, and you're left kind of frozen, not sure where to even look, let alone what to say. Meanwhile, someone else walks in, and it seems like within seconds, they've got the entire social landscape figured out. They know who holds the power, who to talk to, and exactly how to make an impact. So what did they know that you don't? Okay, let's dive into this because I promise you it's not magic, and it is absolutely not a talent you're born with. It's a system. I want you to pay close attention to that phrase right there, a learned visual scanning process. This whole thing isn't about having some kind of innate charisma. No. Think of it more like we're installing a new operating system in your brain, a diagnostic tool that processes social data with incredible speed and precision. See, most of us, we're operating on this default setting that's, well, it's reactive and it's emotional. This new system, it's proactive and totally strategic. And today, we're going to give you the exact 3-step psychological system that turns that social anxiety into a real strategic advantage. All right, welcome to the masterclass, where we install that very system. Here's our roadmap. First, we're going to uncover the silent power paradox, which is all about why the most critical information is never spoken out loud. Then we'll diagnose what we call the cost of social blindness, before we get to the core of it all, the 10-second diagnostic system. We're not just going to show you what to do, we'll show you why it works, grounding it in real psychology. Then we'll give you the exact 5-3-2 implementation protocol. And finally, we'll hand you a completely new social blueprint. So let's get started. Okay, this right here is the first critical mind shift you have to make. We're all trained from birth to listen to words. But real power, influence, authority, the actual decision-making, that's all communicated non-verbally. It's done through space, posture, and attention. It's actually a holdover from our evolutionary past. Before we had complex language, we had to signal status and intention visually. And you know what? Those signals are way more honest. So here's the paradox. To gain influence in a room, you have to first stop trying to participate and instead start diagnosing. Your initial goal isn't to speak, it's to see. So what exactly is this thing we're calling social pattern recognition? Well, it's a system. It's not some vague feeling or gut intuition. It is a structured, repeatable process for decoding the raw nonverbal data that's flowing all around you. I want you to think of yourself as a strategist entering a brand new territory. Your first job is to create a mental map. Mapping power. That means identifying the 1 or 2 people whose opinions actually matter. And mapping alliances. That means seeing who defers to whom, who's mirroring whom. That reveals the hidden teams in the room. This map is what lets you act with precision instead of just guessing. So, what happens when you operate without this system? Well, you run headfirst into an invisible wall that blocks your potential. And this wall, it's built from a very specific cognitive state, a state that I bet most people have experienced, but they just can't put a name to it. We call this state social blindness. It's what happens when your brain is just completely overwhelmed by unstructured social data. Without a filtering mechanism, you experience cognitive overload. Your brain literally doesn't know what to prioritize, so it tries to process everything all at once, which triggers a low-level threat response. And the result? Well, it's what we call miscalibrated behavior. You might approach the wrong person, or totally misjudge the group's mood, or just project nervousness instead of confidence. Now listen, this is not a personal failing. It is a systems failing. You just lack the right tool to filter the noise from the signal. And the contrast in outcomes here, it's everything. Without a system, you're basically lost in the dark. You misidentify power, you waste a ton of social and emotional energy trying to impress people who have zero influence, and ultimately you restrict your own impact. But with a system, the game completely changes. You don't guess, you map power. You don't waste your energy, you deploy it surgically on the exact people and moments that matter. And that's how you gain instant leverage. Okay, so let's get into the mechanics of the solution. We've defined the problem, social blindness. So here is the framework that solves it. The 10-second diagnostic system is your filter. It's the antidote to that cognitive overload we were just talking about. It's a simple, repeatable, 3-part scan that you're going to run every single time you enter a new social environment. These 3 scans are the absolute core of the system. First up, a proxemics audit to map power. Proxemics is just the study of how people use space. You do this first because power dictates the entire context of the room. Second, an alignment scan, which is where you map alliances by reading nonverbal rapport. See, once you know who has the power, you need to know who is aligned with them. And third, a temporal test to map confidence by looking at speed and pacing. This tells you the internal state of the key players. So remember the hierarchy: power, alliances, confidence. Now, what's really cool here is just how concrete these data points are. For Proxemics, you're on a mission. Your mission is to find the anchor person, that one individual who commands the most physical space and whose attention is like the most sought-after currency in the room. For alignment, you're looking for mirroring, that subconscious copying of posture that signals trust and rapport. It's an undeniable tell. And finally, for the temporal test, you're identifying who moves and speaks with the most deliberate, unhurried pace. In a world that just rushes and rushes, slowness signals authority. So now we know what to do. But to really master this, you gotta understand why it's so incredibly effective. I mean, this isn't just a collection of clever party tricks. This system works because it hacks some fundamental psychological principles that govern not only human interaction, but also, and this is crucial, our own internal state. There are 3 core mechanisms at play here. First, it harnesses what psychologists call System 1 heuristics. That's your brain's fast, intuitive, pattern-matching machine. By feeding it specific, high-quality cues, space, pace, and alignment, you just bypass all that slow, clumsy analysis and get an instant, accurate read. Second, it activates something called Embodied Cognition. Now, this is a really powerful feedback loop. When you identify high-status behaviors like a calm pace or an open posture, your own body actually starts to subconsciously adopt them. This changes your mental state from the outside in. And third, it directly neutralizes social blindness. That 3-point filter gives your analytical mind a clear job to do, which calms down your brain's threat detector and turns all that overwhelming noise into a laser beam of focus. And this right here, this brilliantly illustrates the internal benefit. This isn't just about reading other people, it's about regulating yourself. You see, when you have a clear system, you eliminate uncertainty. And when you eliminate uncertainty, you reduce the production of the stress hormone, cortisol. With less cortisol clouding our judgment, your mind is clearer, your voice is more resonant, and you project what we all call presence, that calm, centered confidence that just naturally draws people in. A good system for reading the room is also a system for mastering yourself. Okay, let's get super practical. It's time to move to the application and see how this all builds into a concrete protocol. We're going to turn all this theory into a precise, timed 10-second drill. We call it the 5-3-2, and this is the exact sequence you're going to execute every single time you walk through a doorway into a high-stakes environment. Here is your countdown. The first 5 seconds are all dedicated to the centrality audit. That's finding the power center. The next 3 seconds are for the alignment scan, mapping the teams. And the final 2 seconds are for the temporal lock, calibrating your own pace. 5, 3, 2. It's a sequence that, I promise, becomes totally automatic with practice. Now, let's focus on the most critical part, those first 5 seconds. Your only job here is to find the anchor person, who is the visual magnet of the room. And hey, it's not always the loudest person. Look for who people orient their bodies toward, even when they're talking to someone else. Look for who receives the most eye contact right before other people speak. Who has that conversational veto, the ability to just effortlessly end one topic and start another. That person is the sun, and everyone else is just a planet in orbit. Identifying them is the key that unlocks the entire social map. Now for the final, and I think maybe the most powerful step, the temporal lock. In those last 2 seconds, before you speak to anyone, before you even move to get a drink, you do one simple thing. You implement a controlled 1-second pause. Just 1 second. Inhale. Exhale. This tiny little action does 2 huge things. Internally, it's a pattern interrupt for the anxiety that's screaming at you to just rush in and do something. And externally, it signals immense confidence and control. You're not reacting to the room, you are deciding how you will engage with it. So we bring this all together into a new social blueprint, a new core principle for how you approach every single interaction from now on. It is so simple and it is absolutely non-negotiable. Diagnosis always precedes participation. You have to see the chessboard clearly before you make your move. And this right here is the ultimate lesson. This is the line to write down. If you are not actively and systematically diagnosing the social space, you are, by default, just reacting to it. You're letting the currents of the room push you around. You're a pawn, not a player. Diagnosis is the act of taking control. It's the shift from a reactive to a truly strategic mindset. So here is your challenge. And I don't mean next month or even next week. I mean in your very next high-stakes meeting, your next networking event, I want you to commit to just the first part of this system. Just dedicate the first 10 seconds after you walk in to one thing and one thing only. conducting the centrality audit to find the anchor person. Don't speak, don't move toward anyone, just stand, scan, and identify. Just run the experiment. See what changes, not just in what you perceive, but more importantly in how you feel.
So let's bring it all home. Remember, this social pattern recognition system, it solves the very real problem of social blindness and that miscalibrated behavior we talked about. And why does that matter so much? Because it delivers a systematic way to gain instant social leverage and command. The framework, using the Proxemics audit and the alignment scan, it works because it leverages your brain's rapid visual heuristics and actively reduces your performance anxiety. But the real key here, the single empowering idea I want you to walk away with is this: mastering systems makes focus effortless.